crazy mother.
What's up, you creative genius? My name's Chris, and welcome to Comics with Chris, where I help you master the art of making comics for the web. Today I'm starting a new series that I call Art Styles, where we look at the styles and techniques of world-class comic book artists in order to develop our own. And we're going to take a look at Jim Lee. Jim Lee is a Korean-American comic book artist, writer, editor, and publisher. He entered the industry in 1987 as an artist for Marvel Comics, illustrating titles such as Alpha Flight and the Punisher War Journal before gaining popularity on the Uncanny X-Men. He actually set a world record, Guinness World Record for most comic books sold with his X-Men #1, which is a spin-off of the Uncanny X-Men. Pretty amazing feat if you ask me. So, full disclosure here, I actually traced sort of an outline of the image that you see on the screen here. And I did that mainly because I want to focus on one technique that Jim Lee uses, and I hope we can all kind of learn from it. If you've seen any of Jim Lee's older work, and even some of his newer works, he tends to do a lot of line work, or what you would call hatching or cross-hatching. It's essentially creating a gradient from where the areas are darker to light with simply doing a bunch of lines that are close together or separated slightly. So he uses a lot of these really straight lines in order to create volume and to create gradients, and it's kind of a way or a technique that he uses in order to create shapes. It kind of gives a effect that causes you to see the shapes of the muscles, and I think it's a technique that we could that almost every artist could use. So pretty much I did the traced outline, as you can see here in the video, and I went in after I laid down the dark shadows. Now I could have done this in the ink style, but that's kind of defeats the purpose because I wasn't trying to learn his inking style, because he doesn't ink, he's a penciler. And we'll go over some inking stuff later on in other videos, but for this one I really wanted to focus on how he lays down his lines and where he would typically put them. So as you can see, like around the chest muscles, he kind of lays down a really dark shadow underneath the armpit and around the side of the ribs. And then he lays down just a few lines, and they get less and less as it gets towards the middle of the chest, like as you can see here in the video, like underneath the bat signal. And I tried to do that. I could probably do it a little bit better on paper, but I feel like digital is a medium that I really want to learn and get used to. So, this is why it looks the way it does. And when we get a little bit further down in the video, you'll see I kind of erase and redo some of the line work. As we continue, you can see some other areas where he adds lines. Sometimes it's sort of like a very light shadow, but with lines. And at least that's the kind of effect I get when I'm looking at the art. So like around the stomach muscles, a lot of people think that his art is very realistic. And in my opinion, and I've even heard Jim Lee say this in a video before, that he doesn't think his art's that realistic. And it really isn't when you if you look at real studies of anatomy, the way he does the ribs and the chest, it's a little bit sort of like someone's puffing out their chest, which is not a bad thing. It makes it look really cool in superhero poses, if you ask me. But that's kind of what he does. In like the abdominal muscles and the abs, they actually, in real life, they actually come up very close to the middle of the chest. He kind of puts them down somewhat lower. And he doesn't actually define the muscles with, as drawing each abdominal muscle. He kind of shows an indication of the muscle with line work and shading. So you can kind of see that around the middle of the abdomen and the sides of the ribs. So as we move further on and we look at the way the legs are shaded and the way the hatching and cross-hatching is done on the legs, it's pretty much the same deal here. He creates shape and volume with the lines. And the more lines you add to a certain area, you can kind of put it in the distance. You can kind of make it look further away. But of course, you don't want to put too many lines in there to cover up you'd essentially be making it difficult for an inker to go in there and do stuff with it. And of course, if you've ever compared when Jim Lee inks his own work to what Scott Williams does with it, it's kind of amazing. Like, Scott Williams makes some really cool lines. And it's a lot different when you take a look at it. So that's why that when these two make art together, it's pretty amazing. But from what I got from the most of this, looking now at the stuff I've done, you know, I didn't imitate his lines exactly the way he did, but I got a really good understanding of where he puts them, like the lines and why, because he's trying to create shape and volume, and I can see how he's doing that. It's pretty much wherever the curves are and the shapes of the muscle, that's where he's kind of laying down a lot of lines. And you know, it's really not consistent with all of the art. I think it depends on where the light's coming from, and even then, some of his art, you know, it has very little line work, just like this. Well, no, not just like this. This one actually has a lot of line art and a lot of lines and hatching and cross hatching in this one. But I've seen him do some with an extremely lot, and you would see that if you look at any of his 90s artwork, the stuff he did with Wildcats. But more of his recent stuff, there's a lot less of this line work that you see here in this video. But I really wanted to grasp the way he laid down the lines, and I actually learned a little bit more about the shapes and how he created the muscles. And I think that really helps a lot, you know, in discovering your own styles and, you know, just learning anatomy on your own. So, I mean, this is essentially what I picked up from doing this. And this is sort of a study of styles. I'm not looking to imitate or become a Jim Lee clone, but I thought it was really helpful in order to learn the hatching and cross-hatching techniques that Jim Lee uses. I urge anyone that wants to learn or grow as an artist to, you know, find your favorite artists, see if you can maybe trace something that you find very cool in their art that they do, or try to imitate or duplicate it. But the thing is, you got to remember, you don't want to be an exact clone of any artist. You know, it's going to be noticeable. I mean, will it look cool? Yeah, but, you know, again, you don't want to be an exact clone, but you do want to learn the techniques that they use in order to create art. And I think that's going to make everyone a better artist. You know, the secret behind doing this correctly would be taking one aspect of an artist's style that you like, and then applying it to your own. And I try to add some lines and cross-hatching in my art. It just, every now and then I get a little bit lost on where to place the lines and how. And I can kind of see in this study of styles that you pretty much got to be looking at where the light is coming from. And from here, to me, it looks like it's coming from the top left of the page. And, you know, that's why I get from looking at this now and after doing all the line art. But, you know, this was a really fun piece to do. I really appreciate you guys for watching. Before you go, I thought you might want to check out some other videos I have on my channel. And if you're new to the channel, I'd love it if you subscribe so I can help you to continue to create awesome comics. And as always, create with passion. I'll see you next time. Bye.